Hi everybody, Jane here, and I am doing my wrap-up for the reading rush. For anyone who didn't know, and I feel like if you've been on BookTube anytime this week, you probably do, there was a readathon called the Reading Rush. Formerly, it was BookTubeathon that ran from the 22nd to the 28th. And I do have other books that I read besides the ones that were for the Reading Rush, and I will be covering those in a different video, but I decided to do my Reading Rush books in their own wrap. So I did ultimately read everything for all the, something for all the prompts. However, I did switch out one book in my TBR from what it started as, and I also didn't finish on time. I ended up finishing the last book in the wee hours of Monday morning. I'm gonna count it because there was all kinds of struggle with this whole thing, but just know that I didn't officially win. I was one book short, and I'm gonna tell you all about that whole situation. I didn't technically win, but I'm gonna call it a win because just a few hours late, that the next morning I finished up. Okay, so for the first challenge, which was non-human main characters and purple on the cover, I chose Hex Vet. Now, originally, if you watch my TBR, you will see that this was not my choice. I had originally chosen the Rats of Nim. However, I got about 100 pages into that and found I was really super struggling with it, and I wasn't enjoying it nearly as much as I wanted to be. So I decided to put that down for now. I will continue it next month, and I decided to pick up Hex Vet instead. Another of the YouTubers I watch was reading it, and it looked so freaking cute that I got it from my library. This is about these two witches who are training in like the care of magical creatures at this magical creatures veterinary office. And the veterinarian and the vet tech, basically the people in charge, have to go and take care of a situation, leaving them in charge. And they have a unusual case, this little bunny, which, as you can see, has something weird going on with his eyes, has some problems and infects other animals. And these two apprentice witches have to kind of deal with what's happening. I thought this book was super cute. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I will say, like, I wanted a little more world building because there's not much else going on in this world. There's stuff that I didn't really understand or that wasn't really mentioned. There's a whole story about this witch and her family that I would have liked a little bit more of. And I do believe there's going to be like another one coming soon. So I'm hoping they dive more into that, and that the unanswered questions I have is just because this is book 1 in the series and it's meant to be that way. But overall, it was fun. It was cute. I liked it. And especially if you have like a teenager or a child in your life who really loves animals and would appreciate this, I really enjoyed it. So that was the first book. The second, and that was also my read in one space, so that was 3 challenges for that book. Although all of them were mostly read in one space, so any of them would have counted. The second book I picked up was Yesterday's Daughter. This is about a teenager whose mother abandoned her when she was a baby. She left her to be raised by grandma and grandpa. And mother comes back in the picture wanting to have a relationship with the daughter, and the daughter is not ready to have a relationship with the mom. So she runs away. And while she is running away, she meets an older man who they develop a friendship, and he kind of helps her see that there may be more to her mom's story and situation than she realizes. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. It was okay. There was some really neat places in it, and I liked the overall idea, but it was very slow, and it had a very literary tone to it. So it wasn't much of a fun read, but I didn't dislike it. It was fine. There were some really cute lines in it. I didn't love it. So this was for the book I meant to read last year, and now that I've read it, I will be sending it off because I don't feel the need to keep it. But it was fine. It is a YA, so more appropriate probably for a teenager, and that may be why I didn't love it. The next book was a debut, and also 5 words in the title: The Study of Animal Languages. This book is about a married couple, and it is Ivan and Prue. Ivan and Prue. And they are both college professors. Ivan is a professor of philosophy, and Prue is birds, animal studies. She studies birds. At the beginning of the book, we learn that she is about to give a conference and talk about some of the things they've recently learned in their studies. And Ivan has been sent to pick up Prue's father, who has some problems, some mental health problems. And so Ivan and Prue's dad show up at this conference so that they can listen to Prue. And the things Prue says cause some problems. They cause some problems for her because they are not what the university necessarily would have liked her to talk about. This has really long, complicated reaches, and ultimately it results in Prue and Ivan having some marital problems. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. It had some really fun moments. It had some really quotable lines. I thought the mental health representation was very well done. Sometimes it was played for laughs, but it was also very realistic. Prue's father has some mental health issues similar to what one of my family members does, and we have been through moments very much like in this book. So I thought the mental health rep was really good. Some of the things that didn't work for me. I didn't feel like I got it. I felt like this book is told in a very literary tone. It's not super accessible, and especially at the end, I was like, what is the point? What were you trying to do with this book? Because I didn't get it. So it was fine. I didn't love it. I thought it had interesting moments. It had funny moments, but at the end of the day, I wish it would have ended a little differently. So. And then the last one was read a book to movie adaptation. Now, for you who watch my TBR, you know that I chose a reread from my childhood. One of my favorite books as a late teenager, and that is The Golden Hawk. Now, this is the one that I finished Monday morning because I had all kinds of problems with the video. So, in a nutshell, I had got this video from Amazon. I was so excited to find that a video of this existed because, as I said, this was one of my favorite books from childhood, or from like my teen years. And so I got the movie and I could not get it to play. The way it's created, I don't know if it is what caused the problems. I ended up calling Amazon and they are sending me a new one, so we'll see if it works. But I also did some research, and the way that it's created just may not work on the devices that I own. I tried it in a PlayStation 3, a PlayStation 4, and a portable DVD player. You would think it would work in one of those. It did not. It said corrupted disk. But, so I thought I wasn't going to be able to finish the challenge and was totally panicking. And then, because YouTube has everything, I found a version of the movie. And it's an old movie, 1950s, on YouTube. And I will link it below because it's worth watching if you like old movies, and especially like piratey adventure movies. The movie was better than I thought it was going to be. I was actually really excited to watch the movie. There was a lot that they had to do different than the book because of the times, and some of the content in the book had to be changed. But anyway, so I wanted to go back and see if this book I still loved as much. This book is about a pirate named Kit and another pirate named Jane. And basically they both want revenge against the same guy. This guy was responsible, at least they believe, for his mom's death and her sister's death. So they kind of are falling in love while also trying to get revenge against the same person. And it's a lot more complicated than that, but I can't get into the intricacies too much because if I do, it'll spoil the whole thing. I will do a spoiler review if you really care later, but this was a good book. It was still a good book. I still really loved it. It was a 4 out of 5 for me, though, at this point, and not a 5 out of 5 for me. So the story, I remembered a lot of it really stuck with me, but there were some things that I'd forgotten. So some of the things that I had forgotten in a good way is this book has amazing lines, amazing dialogue. I love so much of the author's word choices and phrase choices in this. It's very tongue-in-cheek, it is hilarious, and I write dialogue. That is one of my strengths in writing and things that I think I do fairly well. And I can see a lot of this book influencing my writing, like the way I choose to do dialogue. So I loved the dialogue. The story was cool. It worked. Again, I already knew the story, so some things that were not as great as they could have been. One of them is just that Kit, the boy, is very angsty. He has kind of an insta-love thing with Jane. Like, he meets her and he's suddenly madly in love with her, wants to marry her this minute. And there's really not a lot of context for why. The movie actually did that better. Because in the book, he sort of rescues her. And then he kisses her without permission, and she shoots him and jumps off his ship. That is their first meeting. And that is how he decides magically that he wants to marry her. Yeah. Now, in the movie, what they did instead was they did have him rescue her from a kidnapping. And she gets on his ship, and they spend some time talking and getting to know each other. And then he kisses her without permission and she shoots him and dives off the ship. Consent is kind of an issue in this book. Again, this is written in the 1940s, so they did things a little different back then. But that is one thing if you're big on to like absolutely explicit consent. There's a lot of moments where Kit really is like, you know you want it. And then she ultimately is like, oh, you're right, I do. It's like, and then that kind of bothered me again. As a more mature and modern reader, there was a point where she's like whipping him because she wants him to stay away from her. And he just goes through the whipping and grabs her and kisses her. And the same with the sword. She holds a sword to his chest and he's like walking into it and he's bleeding. And she's like, I guess I have to let you kiss me. So consent is a bit of an issue in this book. The pacing near the end of the book was also really frustrating. I was like, let's just get a move on. This is very much, and I didn't remember this about the book, an adventure story. And if y'all know, I'm not huge into adventure stories. So I don't think this could be a favorite the way it used to be because I think I was more tolerant of it back then. This is very much like they're going on this big drawn-out adventure and breaking out of jail and doing all this stuff in the midst of this romance and this revenge story. And it was cool, but I definitely, especially as we were getting closer to the end, I was like, can we just get there already? I'm done. I'm over it. I'm good. Another thing that I think is a sign of the times from when it was written, there is a lot of, and the time it's supposed to portray. All of this story is taking place in the 1600s. And there is a lot of talk about race. And some of it I think would be a little bit uncomfortable nowadays. For instance, there is a section where they're in the Caribbean and they're talking about the slaves and they're talking about what slaves are best for what things. Like slaves from certain areas are really good for defense. They fight a lot, but they're not good workers. But then other slaves are really good at like doing the tilling and stuff, but they're not warriors, and so like if you get attacked, they're not going to defend your fields. I had kind of mixed feelings about that and some of the other racial stuff in this book. Now, one thing I will say that I do think kind of counteracts that a little bit, besides the time the book was A, written in, and B, supposed to be written from, like the 1600s. And I do feel like we can be a little more forgiving. The author, I'm pretty sure, is biracial. So I don't think any of the things written were from a prejudicial place. I think it was just one of those things where, you know, he was talking about the times. So, but if that would bother you, this may not be the book for you. This was a good book. The movie is probably a lot more PC in many ways than the book. So if you think an adventure story is cool, you don't mind something from the 1950s, definitely watch the movie, feel good. It was good. It wasn't as good as the book, but it was very different than the book, and like I said, they had to do things quite differently because of some of the content here. The 1950s was kind of, there were many things they couldn't talk about, I would say, or there's some censorship, and so some of the important points in this book just aren't there because of it. So yeah, so that was my reading rush wrap up. I succeeded, I won, I'm proud of myself, and I had a good time, which is really what counts. So did you beat the reading rush? Were they good reads? Did you have a good time? Let me know below. This is Jane. My social media is down there. Please like and subscribe. Also, I'm going to start saying this at the end of my videos because it occurred to me I don't, and maybe I should. I am a writer, so if you have any interest in checking out my books, if you're a romance reader, my Amazon profile is linked below as well. If you want to check out some of the books I've written, I would keep an eye out because I often do specials and sales. Also, if you're in Kindle Unlimited, you can get some of my books for free reads. So if you want to, check it out. If not, no problem. See you next time. Bye.